Listen up.
This is the SEC Insider Hit, powered by Miss Kelly Furniture, Mississippi's number one sleep store.
Well, we were just debating important things like pizza and cooking pizzas on the grill and at home for Super Bowl Sunday and the toppings that you love. That's the kind of deep insight that you get on this show when it comes to Chiefs and Eagles. Actually, we just at 7:30 today, we had the Ole Miss wide receiver coach that coached A.J. Brown for 3 years. Before going to the Titans and Eagles. So we do hardcore sports at times, too. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Speaking of the Super Bowl, premium cigars from Havana Smoke Shop, I-55 North in Jackson. Premium cigars, Havana Smoke Shop at the Res. And don't forget that Mudbugs is open all weekend with the best crawfish in Mississippi. We want to welcome in Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. He is out in Glendale, Arizona. And, well, what's it like out there? What's the week been like, my man?
It's crazy and hectic, as always, over on Media Row now. They renamed it from Radio Row, I guess. But it starts a little slow. I got here on Monday, but then it starts to pick up, and it's just a big melting pot of everybody and anybody related to the NFL for the most part. So we've had some good discussions on our podcast and, seen some people and good times, getting ready for the game.
Who's the most famous person you've either seen or run into?
I like to think that most people who run into me answer that question. So that I flip it with them. What I struggle with is everybody can recognize me if they've met me before, but I don't do great at remembering faces or names. So a lot of people say hi to me who I don't know. So, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. But we had Taylor Lewan on our show because he had some conspiracy theory about our grades and players paying for grades. So we called him out on it and had him on our podcast. So that was a good one.
I love it. If you wear your San Francisco Giants jersey, that it may give you, I don't know how much, but it may give you a bump around all those celebrities, former players, and whoever else, former coaches, and whoever else you're running into.
It's true. There are way more people who are way more famous than I am. So you need something to stand out. That certainly could help.
Okay. Is it a zoo? Basically?
Yeah, a little bit. It is. I mean, it's like, everybody's trying to get people on their shows and people are just running around. People are trying to come in and promote things. You got a lot of former NFL players and Hall of Famers running around. They've got something to push. I think we have Emmitt Smith in about an hour, pushing his tequila. We're about to talk to him in a little bit here. So yeah, it's a bit of a crazy time out here.
Dude, you are getting to interview Emmitt Smith. Okay. When I was a kid,
he's pushing his tequila.
Yeah, he was which is awesome. That's great. When he was at the University of Florida, he took a pitch 4 yards in the backfield against Mississippi State. I'm sorry, in the end zone. And on Florida's side of the football and ran it all the way, it was like 96-yard run.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is pre-Spurrier before they got really, really good. And, of course, we all remember him with the Cowboys. Well, that's the glory days. Blake's been a Cowboys fan for since his birth, and they haven't been good, since he was like 4 years old. So,
yeah, the early 90s were special. Glory days.
One thing that I've heard about Emmitt, I can't wait for you to tell us about it later, is he's been so successful off the field. But I wonder how much he'll get into story. I mean, outside of him, pushing his tequila, and I think that's great. I wonder how many stories he'll share maybe on whatever it is, Jimmy Johnson. I know these have been told, but it's still good to capture Irvin or anything else while he was there. Who else are you trying to land this week?
Oh, I don't know. Just trying to think off the top of my head here. I mean, we have like Mina Kimes from ESPN. She's always been a friend of the show and stuff like that. So Dan Orlovsky, because he has some ridiculous takes that we need to call him out on. And but he never gives us time. He never gives us time down there. So we're always trying to get Dano and call him out on his top 5 QBs and all that stuff that he does.
All right. What's the weather like?
It's warm in the day and cool at night. It's dry and deserty, but it's 60s and 70s over here. Gets cool at night though.
They're loading up content every 5 seconds. PFF.com, Pro Football Focus, podcast, and all sorts of other nuggets. Steve Palazzolo joins us on the Out of Bounds show. How many people does Pro Football Focus have out there?
We're pretty small right now. We only have 5 at the moment, but we've got the big bosses coming in. Chris Collinsworth, he'll come in. He likes to get into the party scene, on Friday and Saturday, leading into the Super Bowl, do some schmoozing and all that stuff. So we've got a few more people coming in, I think, tomorrow. Okay,
what about you? Are you going to make a party? Or is Steve Palazzolo strictly podcast, the website, booking guests, and all that?
No. I like to mingle, just try to. It's a good networking event. So I go to like the big. They had a big media party on a farm where they just feed you and everything. So I do that. Might be a FanDuel party or something coming up tomorrow night. So I'm just going to go interact with people and network a little bit.
All right. So you went to some kind of farm in the Phoenix metro area. Did any of the food jump out at you that you had? Was something amazing?
It was actually amazing. It sounded ridiculous, but it was amazing. There was thousands of media members there, probably a 30-acre farm, and they just had food everywhere and free drinks and a DJ that didn't need to be there. But look, it was a good again, nice little get together. They take care of the media out here at the Super Bowl.
Do you find that Blake and I were discussing this morning, and you know how Blake nerds out on this NFL stuff like y'all do, and he said we don't have a villain. Like that it's a weird temperature in the room this week. Obviously, you're excited. You're in the throes of it. Y'all are going to get millions of page views and downloads and all that, and I love it for y'all. And everybody will be locked in, and the ratings will be amazing. But do you find that even though the Chiefs have been living in this AFC championship space 5 in a row, in their 3rd Super Bowl, maybe if they win this one, Steve Palazzolo, they'll get that villain-hated deal that we do with the Patriots and other teams. But do you find that there's not really it's hard to hate Andy Reid, right? I mean, he's overweight and seems like this, great guy to hang out with and smash a cheeseburger and drink a beer. Now, I think Sirianni is cocky and could turn into something later. You can't hate Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes. Are you reading do you agree with that? No? What do you see, Steve?
I actually, I agree with your assessment there. I do think winning does create the villain, though. So the point about, hey, if the Chiefs win this, people will start to get sick of them. I don't know if people remember the Patriots of the early 2000s, but they were like America's team. Sorry about the Cowboys. But America loved the Patriots for a few years. They were the plucky underdog, their first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They came out as a team for their Super Bowl. They didn't get introduced as individuals. It was like, they're such a team. That's what they do. And then it was like, oh, wait, they win nonstop. We hate them now. So the Chiefs could go through that. Mahomes is so likable, though, because he's fun to watch and does crazy stuff. So I don't know if the Chiefs ever get the villain status. But, yeah, I think players, fans definitely get sick of the same team winning. And there is a golden opportunity. If the Chiefs don't dominate the next few years, there is a golden opportunity for the NFL to have that special parity that they always yearn for, where maybe it's the Bengals, maybe it's the Bills, the Eagles built a great team one year. We could have this mishmash of different champions instead of it's Tom Brady holding the trophy every other year. Right. So there is a chance for that, but I think you're right as far as everybody's assessment of the game, too. It's like, it should be close, right? The Eagles have a great team. The Chiefs have Mahomes, and they're solid all around. So it should be a good game, and there's nobody to root against. And, I agree that, there's a lot of positivity around both teams right now.
Okay. Do you believe, for our listeners, most of you I don't think, really follow this. Nick Sirianni is the head coach for the Eagles. He's new. He's young. Blake and I were talking about his sideline demeanor, Steve Palazzolo. And in the NFL, I think the overwhelming majority of guys are stoic, kind of like Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, and so on, Mike Tomlin. But hell, Mike McCarthy. I wonder sometimes if is he breathing? But Sean Payton would get brash and get a little shoulder shuffle going, wiggle, and I mean he more than most guys that I can think of would have a little juice on the sideline. One, do you agree with that? I mean, he'd get a little cocky and so on, which doesn't happen in the NFL. Do you agree that Nick Sirianni has some cocky tendencies on the sideline as a head coach?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, he's definitely – I think his players love it, though. I think they love how fired up he is and how he's in the trenches. And we actually did have Julian Love, the Giants defensive back, on our show yesterday because he went viral for basically saying, oh, Nick Sirianni's basically been a passenger. He's got a great team. And that's, today's world. It wasn't exactly what Julian Love was trying to say about Sirianni. He was just trying to say, hey, the players love his fiery demeanor, but they have a really good all-around team, and he lets them play. That was the point I think he was trying to make. And I think Sirianni has elements of that. And then I also think he's got some, like other Eagles coaches like Doug Peterson had, some forward-looking thoughts on how to handle fourth downs and be aggressive and all that stuff. So they've implemented this, I think, organizational-wide philosophy to be aggressive and understand the edges of the game when it comes to decision-making on the field. And then on top of that, Sirianni's just this fiery personality who likes to get in there. And, there's those couple times in the playoffs where he wanted to go for two when everybody assumed he wanted to go for one. And that was mathematical. That was, he had a reason and a strategy for that. And then it came across as him being cocky and brash that like, oh, I got to do it this way. But that's, there were reasons for all that. And then he just happens to have this fiery personality. So, yeah, I think he's done well, and it's all after Sirianni had a terrible first press conference where he was, nervous and, stumbled across his words a little bit, which everybody's done at, various points, and people wrote him off after one press conference, but they were wrong. He's been an excellent head coach, I think, for the Eagles through 2 years here.
Are the Eagles the craziest fans in football, NFL?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was on Philly radio the other day, and I was like, I almost said something like that. I said something about fan bases, especially in big cities, is what I said. Get fired up about this, they're crazy. They're so passionate. The famous story about booing Santa and all that stuff. They hate that, but there are elements to that, right? I mean, their sports radio is getting upset about absolutely everything, and they're just really passionate. But when they win, that parade that they had after the 2017 Super Bowl and all that stuff, when they win well as well, right? Passionately. So yeah, they're up there as far as passionate fan bases go.
Is this game set up for A.J. Brown to have a big Sunday Super Bowl?
I really think him and Devontae Smith are the key for the Eagles, right? I mean, there's probably a lot of people saying, hey, the Eagles are going to run the ball and keep it away from Mahomes. But at some point, the Chiefs, they love to play press coverage on the outside. There's no receiver better than A.J. Brown against press coverage. And once they go one-on-one on the outside with the young corners that the Chiefs have, I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have to make plays. So even if the Eagles move the ball on the ground and slow it down and all that stuff, I think it's going to come down to those explosive plays. It's going to be the receivers winning one-on-ones, A.J. Brown winning at the catch point, whatever it might be. I'm not saying he needs to have 10 catches and 150 yards or anything, but I think there's at least 2 or 3 big plays in there, probably from A.J. Brown, that need to be made if the Eagles are going to win.
Yeah. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus. The guys hanging out with celebrities in Glendale, Arizona. Super Bowl week. Pro Football Focus is everywhere. Podcast and the site is kicking. Jalen Hurts hasn't had to make a big game-winning play or really a big play in this playoffs, just kind of the way it lined up against the Giants and the 49ers. Mahomes has been doing this for a while in the postseason. Do you think that Hurts has that capability to make that big play or have that big drive on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, we haven't really seen it at all during Hurts' career, even last year. So I don't know. I mean, it does show the difference in both teams, right? I mean, we talk a lot about elite quarterbacks and quarterbacks who are going to carry you versus those who are going to just be passengers. And I'm not saying Hurts can't be really good or isn't really good, but clearly he's not in Mahomes' world at the moment. The Eagles have led more than any other team over the last 5 years, just been in the lead from a just overall time standpoint this year. So they haven't had to play from behind a ton. So yeah, I think it's important for the Eagles to have the game flow in their favor, to not fall behind 2 scores and all that stuff. I'm not saying Hurts can't do it, but it's certainly not the Eagles' game. And we haven't seen much of it, like just drop back, pass, and, chuck it around. I think the Eagles definitely need to keep the game close, keep it on schedule, be able to run their entire offense. And then we'll see. I mean, look, if Hurts is in a comeback situation, it helps having those playmakers. And Hurts has been really good this year at chucking it up, right? Last year he was maybe a little hesitant, even when guys were open. This year he's saying, hey, when A.J. Brown has one-on-one, I'm going to throw it up to him. When Devontae Smith is one-on-one, I'm going to let him go make a play. So that's a huge part of making those comebacks. So I think they're equipped to do it, even though we haven't seen them have to do it a whole lot this year.
Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Who's in a better, I guess, position, just depending on the matchups, to have a bigger day? Chris Jones with the Chiefs, Fletcher Cox with the Eagles.
Well, probably I'd say Chris Jones just because he's that much better. But it's 2 really good offensive lines. I think that the Chiefs' strength is the interior of their offensive line. Their 2 guards, Joe Thuney, Trey Smith, and then center Creed Humphrey. So I think it's going to be more challenging for the Eagles on the interior with Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave trying to get after the QB. I think the Eagles can have some success on the edge. For the Chiefs, Chris Jones doesn't have backup Bengals guard Max Sharping trying to block him this week, where he just kept pushing him into the backfield and had about 10 pressures in the AFC Championship. It will be more difficult against the Eagles, but I'll go Chris Jones because he was the best defensive tackle in all of football this year.
Okay. Whoa. Hang on. Chris Jones.
Because Aaron Donald got hurt. Yeah, Chris Jones is number 1.
Okay.
Because Aaron Donald got hurt. Yeah.
Okay. How fringe, not fringe right now is Fletcher Cox, in your opinion, as far as Hall of Fame?
Oh, man, Hall of Fame's tough. I mean, I do think at his peak for 3 or 4 years, we always joke, like, okay, who's the next best player after Aaron Donald? I think Donald has clearly been the best guy pretty much since his rookie year at that position. But Fletcher Cox was the guy for a few years. He was the clear number 2. But it's probably fringe. I think there's a lot of good players in this era. I'd say Fletcher Cox for about he's had over a 10-year career, but for about 5 or 6 years was right there as the next guy behind Aaron Donald. We'll see how that plays, but it's probably right on the outskirts right now for Fletcher Cox.
If you had to bet $100 on one of them making it, neither may not, obviously, Chris Jones or Fletcher Cox to Canton, Ohio Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I would say Chris Jones. I think from start to finish, Fletcher Cox had a bit of a slow start to his career. Jones was pretty much dominant right from the beginning. And it's easier for me to say right now because he's in the heart of his career. But I don't think, Fletcher Cox had some lulls at the beginning. He slowed down a little bit toward the end. So Chris Jones has a chance if he puts together 3 or 4 more elite seasons. That's a pretty solid career. You throw a couple rings on top of it. So I'll say Chris Jones.
Okay. Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Steve Palazzolo, live from Radio Row, the Super Bowl. He's rubbing elbows with celebrities, all kinds of media events, his podcast, and, of course, the site is popping. How many do you expect – where do you expect this score to land on Sunday?
Oh, man, I've been saying this 27 to 24 range. I feel like it could be a little bit lower scoring, but who the heck knows? You know how they just game flow just gets away from teams sometimes. It's 0-0 after the first or halfway into the second, and it's like, wow, we didn't expect this game to go like this. And then it could just be, hey, the Chiefs run down there and score a couple touchdowns right away. I could see the Chiefs scoring on their first drive. They're so good on scripted plays. that they get up and score, and then the Eagles adjust a little bit. So I think there'll be some back and forth. I think the defenses will have some success. I think the other thing, too, in that 49ers game, the Niners defense is really good, but if they hadn't lost their QBs, their D was playing excellent. And they ended up giving up 31 points, but those were on short field after turnovers and everything. The Niners defense was great. The Eagles offense was not very good in that game, and the Chiefs defense has played well down the stretch. So I could see it being a little bit on the lower scoring side, and maybe toward the end a little bit more scoring. It gets up into the 20s. So I've been predicting that 27-24 range for the final.
Okay. Did you make an official prediction for us? The Steve Palazzolo official Pro Football Focus prediction?
I have not, but I sometimes I make different predictions everywhere I go.
I've done that too during SEC football, season. I know I find myself doing the same damn thing.
Then retweet the right one, right? Always retweet the right one when you get, that's the strategy.
Oh man, oh, goodness. All right, what do you think?
I'll stick with that 27-24, which I guess one of the betting sites out here interviewed me, and they said that is the most common predicted score, 27-24. So
sure.
I'll take the Chiefs winning by 3, and we'll say it's some Mahomes magic, leading to another game-winning field goal toward the end, 27-24 Chiefs.
Bam. We'll leave it there. I'm rooting for the Eagles. Blake's rooting for the Chiefs because Dallas is in that division. And are you rooting for anybody, or can you, quote-unquote, not root for anybody since you're with Pro Football Focus?
I root for the Shield. I root for the NFL. So I'm just rooting for fun. Listen, I was a Tom Brady apologist for years, so my fandom has been retired. So I'm just going to enjoy the football.
Okay, well, I am a fan, and I'm rooting for the Eagles. I love Big Play Slay. And
all right, love it.
So there we go. All right, dude. Have a great time. Thank you, bud.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the game. Steve
Palazzolo, PFF.com. Check it out. And his podcast, those guys are kicking it. All NFL. They have a good time. Giving, evidently, Taylor Lewan a hard time, which is great, among others.
You excited that he picked the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let y'all be wrong.
Oh, man. Come on now.
Yeah.
I guess we got to figure out between now and tomorrow's end of show what our Super Bowl bet's going to be.
We do need to do that.
We're going to have to put something on that.
We do need to do that. I'm in.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out.
Okay. What? I mean,
maybe
is it just going to be like lunch?
Maybe we'll ask listeners what the bet should be for.
Or like.
I mean, you should take me to a nice dinner, but I should have to do something different.
Did that.
Yeah.
Monday night.
Well, I mean, let me rephrase that. You should always
Pete
just
Lavin,
take me to nice dinners. Yes.
Which I was glad he was there because then, I got to actually hang out with somebody that I wanted to be with. But Pete Lavin, general manager of the M Braves, and you and I
that was rude.
Were at Kessler Prime, and we smashed some Pittsburgh medium rare steaks.
Yes.
Along with the bacon appetizer.
And crab claws.
And
all of that should continue to happen, but I guess just meant for this bet, maybe that should be your side of it, and we'll have to figure out what mine would be.
I want to let you know that Kessler Prime now has Patron Reposado Tequila. I'm trying to lean on Scott to pick up Patron Añejo and Extra Añejo Tequila. The Extra Añejo is aged in an oak barrel for over 3 years. Pair it with a cigar from Havana Smoke Shop. Hour number 3 coming up. Part 2 may join us at 9:30.